Nobody expected the update to hit like this, just hours after fans thought there was still hope. A single line allegedly dropped from an overseas courtroom that flipped everything upside down. The appeal was denied. Fans are shocked because the story they were following suddenly took a turn nobody saw coming, and the name attached to it made it even harder to believe. Wiz Khalifa, known for living light, laughing things off, and floating above drama, was suddenly being linked to a 9-month sentence that wasn't going anywhere. According to reports circulating right now, the judge didn't hesitate. No delays, no reconsideration, just a firm decision that stunned everyone in the room. Emotions ran high when word started spreading that the overseas drug case, the one fans thought would quietly disappear, was being treated way more seriously than expected. And the craziest part? Insiders say the courtroom went silent when the ruling was read. On it, like even the people who came prepared didn't think it would actually go this way. Almost immediately, timelines exploded. Fans were asking how a global superstar could end up caught in a legal twist like this abroad. Others started questioning what really happened behind the scenes. Was this a misunderstanding that spiraled? A cultural clash gone wrong? Or something deeper that never made headlines until now? The family was left divided, according to rumors, with some pushing for continued legal pressure and others urging acceptance before things get worse. What's making this feel different is how final it all sounds. Allegedly, the judge referenced no grounds for leniency, a phrase that sent shockwaves through fan pages and group chats. Friends close to the situation are rumored to be scrambling, trying to understand how a lifestyle that's been openly celebrated for years suddenly became a legal nightmare overseas. And now the biggest question hangs in the air. If the appeal really is denied, what happens next? Is this the end of the road, or just the beginning of a much bigger fight? Because if even half of what's being whispered is true, this case might expose a side of fame, travel, and privilege that fans were never meant to see. From the moment the appeal denial rumors started spreading, the mood around the situation reportedly shifted from disbelief to damage control. People close to the camp say nobody expected the overseas court to stand its ground like that, especially given the confidence everyone had leading up to the decision. Fans are shocked because for weeks, the narrative floating around was that this case would end quietly, handled with fines or time served, not a hard 9-month sentence being upheld without hesitation, according to whispers coming from people claiming inside knowledge. The legal team walked into the appeal hearing expecting flexibility. The belief was that cultural differences, celebrity status, and a clean record back home would all weigh in favor of leniency. Instead, the judge allegedly focused on strict local law, reportedly making it clear that fame carried no weight in that courtroom. Emotions ran high when those words began circulating online, because it challenged the idea that star power works the same everywhere in the world. Friends close to the situation are rumored to have been stunned by how fast everything moved. One alleged source said the ruling came down quicker than expected, leaving little time to react or adjust. Phones started buzzing immediately afterward, not with celebration or relief, but with confusion and panic. Fans are shocked hearing that even seasoned industry figures were scrambling to understand what just happened. Behind the scenes, the emotional toll was reportedly heavy. And people say Wiz himself appeared calm on the surface, but visibly frustrated in private. One rumored moment describes him saying, "This supposed to be over," under his breath after hearing the update. Whether that quote is real or not, it captured how many supporters felt. Blindsided by a system they didn't fully understand. Family reactions, according to speculation, were anything but unified. Some relatives allegedly urged acceptance. Ian are arguing that pushing back further could make the situation worse. Others reportedly wanted to explore every remaining legal option, convinced the punishment was excessive. The family was left divided, with tense conversations about risk, reputation, and mental health happening behind closed doors. Online, fans wasted no time forming opinions. Some immediately defended him, calling the sentence extreme and unfair. Others began questioning what details hadn't been shared publicly, wondering if there was more to the story than people realized. Emotions ran high as timelines filled with arguments about international law, cultural misunderstandings, and whether artists should be more cautious when traveling abroad. Adding to the confusion were rumors that the case itself wasn't as simple as initially reported. Some claimed the issue stemmed from miscommunication with local authorities. Others suggested someone close may have given bad advice, telling him the situation wasn't serious when it actually was. Fans are shocked by how quickly quickly blame started shifting, even without clear facts. The industry reaction was reportedly mixed. A few artists subtly showed support online, liking posts or sharing vague messages about unfair systems. Others stayed completely silent, choosing not to touch a situation that felt legally sensitive. That silence spoke volumes to fans, who began speculating about what people really knew behind the scenes. What made the situation even more intense was the idea that this ruling could set a precedent. Some fans worried that if a high-profile artist could face such a strict outcome, anyone traveling internationally could be at risk. Emotions ran high as conversations expanded beyond one case into broader fears about touring, festivals, and international laws that don't bend for celebrity lifestyles. Inside the camp, according to rumors, conversations shifted from fighting the ruling to preparing for reality, logistics, schedules, public image, mental strength. One alleged insider said the tone changed from "this will pass" to "we have to deal with this." Fans are shocked because that shift suggests the appeal denial wasn't just a rumor, but something being taken seriously behind closed doors. At the same time, skeptics pushed back hard, saying the story didn't add up. They questioned how such a high-profile case could remain so quiet in official channels while exploding online. That doubt only fueled more debate, with some calling the entire situation exaggerated, while others argued that international cases often stay low profile until the last minute. As the hours passed, the lack of a public statement became the loudest detail of all. No confirmation, no denial, just silence. The family was left divided, the fans were split, and the internet filled the gaps with speculation. And in that silence, the story continued to grow, taking on a life of its own. What's clear is that this alleged appeal denial shook the image people had of how protected fame really is. Whether the details are fully accurate or not, the emotional impact is real. Fans are shocked not just by the sentence being upheld, but by the reminder that outside familiar borders, the rules change, and not everyone gets a second chance. As the shock settled in, a second wave of rumors started circulating that made the situation feel even more chaotic. People claiming to be familiar with overseas legal systems began saying the denial wasn't just about the substance involved, but about how the case was handled from the very beginning. Fans are shocked because whispers suggest there were early chances to quietly resolve the issue that may have been missed due to bad guidance or overconfidence. The idea that a small decision early on could snowball into 9 months behind bars has people rethinking everything they thought they knew. According to the stories floating around, the defense allegedly assumed the appeal would be treated like a formality. The belief was that international courts often soften their stance when dealing with high-profile foreigners, especially artists with clean reputations back home. That assumption, if true, backfired badly. Emotions ran high when insiders claimed the judge explicitly pushed back against that expectation, allegedly stating that equal treatment meant no special favors at all. That line alone has been repeated across social media as proof that the courtroom energy was tense and unforgiving. Friends close to the situation are rumored to have felt blindsided by how firm the ruling sounded. One alleged conversation describes someone saying, "They not playing over there," with a tone that suggested panic more than surprise. Fans are shocked because this paints a picture of people realizing too late that the rules they were used to didn't apply. The lifestyle that's often celebrated in music suddenly looked risky in a different legal environment. Family dynamics reportedly became more strained as reality set in. Some relatives allegedly questioned why travel protocols weren't stricter, why local legal experts weren't consulted sooner, and why the situation was allowed to escalate. Others pushed back, saying hindsight doesn't help, and that focusing on blame would only make things worse. The family was left divided, with emotions spilling into arguments about responsibility, trust, and how much control anyone really has in moments like this. Online speculation added another layer of pressure. Some fans began accusing unnamed associates of giving reckless advice, onto claiming someone downplayed the seriousness of the situation. Others insisted the system itself was unfair, targeting foreigners to make an example. Emotions ran high as these two narratives clashed, with neither side willing to back down. Every new rumor seemed to deepen the divide rather than clarify anything. Industry insiders reportedly started having quiet conversations about the broader implications. Touring schedules, international appearances, and festival bookings suddenly felt more complicated. Fans are shocked because this one case, real or exaggerated, sparked fear about how artists move globally. People began asking whether the industry does enough to prepare talent for different legal realities, or if fame creates a false sense of security that disappears at the border. Another dramatic twist came from whispers that the appeal denial wasn't unanimous. Some claimed there were internal disagreements within the court. Even if the final decision stood, whether that's true or not, the idea gave fans hope that the situation might still change. Emotions ran high as supporters clung to the possibility of another legal angle, while skeptics warned that hoping for reversals could lead to deeper disappointment. Meanwhile, the silence from Wiz's side continued to fuel speculation. Supporters argued that staying quiet was the smartest move, letting lawyers handle everything without interference. Critics said the silence made things feel more serious, almost like preparation instead of resistance. The family was left divided, watching the internet interpret every non-move as a statement. As days passed, new rumors suggested the emotional toll was starting to show. People claimed he was frustrated not just by the ruling, but by the narrative forming around it. One alleged quote said, "They acting like I'm something I'm not," hinting at discomfort with being portrayed through a single incident rather than a lifetime of work. Fans are shocked because it highlights how quickly public perception can shift when legal drama enters the picture. The conversation also started pulling in past moments, with fans re-examining old interviews and lyrics for hints about international travel and risk-taking. What once sounded carefree now felt ominous to some listeners. Emotions ran high as people debated whether art should ever be used to judge real-life situations, especially when rumors are already clouding the truth. By this stage, the story had moved beyond one appeal denial and turned into a larger debate about privilege, accountability, and global rules. Some fans felt the situation exposed a hard truth. Fame doesn't protect you everywhere. Others believed the punishment sounded too harsh to be the full story. The family was left divided. The fans were split and no official clarity arrived to settle the storm. What kept the tension alive was the sense that something still wasn't fully explained. Whether that's missing details, exaggerated rumors, or quiet negotiations happening out of sight, nobody could say for sure. Fans are shocked because uncertainty is often more unsettling than bad news. And as long as questions remain unanswered, this overseas case continues to hang over everything like an unfinished chapter. Waiting for the next twist to drop. As the days went on, the emotional strain around the situation reportedly started showing in ways fans weren't used to seeing. People close to the circle claimed the confidence everyone projected early on had been replaced with quiet frustration. Not panic, not breakdowns, just a heavy realization that this wasn't a headline you could laugh off. Fans are shocked because the tone shifted from "this will blow over" to "we might really be stuck dealing with this." According to whispers, private conversations became more serious and more honest. The jokes stopped, the optimism faded. One alleged insider said the mood felt like someone finally saying out loud what everyone had been thinking but avoiding. Emotions ran high when rumors spread that contingency plans were being discussed. Not because anyone wanted to accept the outcome, but because ignoring it felt irresponsible. That alone made fans uneasy, because preparation usually means people know something the public doesn't. Friends reportedly had mixed reactions. Some stayed supportive, checking in regularly, offering encouragement and distraction. Others allegedly pulled back, not out of disloyalty, but fear of being associated with a situation that could escalate. Fans are shocked by how fast proximity becomes a liability when legal drama enters the picture. One rumored comment from a longtime associate said, "This ain't about love, it's about staying out the way," a line that sparked debate online about loyalty versus self-preservation. Family emotions were said to be at an all-time high. Some relatives allegedly felt angry, not just at the ruling, but at how exposed everything suddenly felt. Others focused on emotional support, reminding everyone involved that no sentence defines a lifetime. The family was left divided. These had torn between rage at the system and exhaustion from fighting something that felt out of their control. One alleged family voice said, "We can't let this break us," while another reportedly replied, "But we can't pretend it's not happening either." Online, the narrative began shifting again. After the initial outrage, some fans started questioning the realism of the rumors. They pointed out the lack of official documents, the absence of mainstream coverage, and the way details kept changing depending on who told the story. Emotions ran high as skeptics clashed with believers, each side convinced the other was missing something obvious. The comment sections turned into full-on debates about credibility. At the same time, others argued that overseas cases often stay quiet by design. They claimed limited access, privacy laws, and diplomatic sensitivities could explain the lack of confirmation. Fans are shocked because both explanations sound plausible, which only adds to the confusion. When a story lives in that gray area, it becomes almost impossible to kill. Another twist came from rumors that someone involved felt betrayed by early assurances. Allegedly, advice had been given that the situation wasn't serious, that it would resolve quickly. If true, that realization hit hard once the appeal was denied. Emotions ran high as fans speculated whether bad information played a role in how aggressively the case was handled early on. The idea that confidence turned into complacency struck a nerve with many supporters. The mental toll, according to whispers, started becoming a bigger topic than the legal one. People claimed the stress of uncertainty was worse than the idea of time itself. Sleepless nights, short patience, constant updates that led nowhere. Fans are shocked, realizing how draining it must be to live in limbo, not knowing whether to prepare for freedom or confinement. Meanwhile, industry conversations reportedly grew quieter. No public statements, no loud support campaigns, just subtle gestures, private check-ins, and silence. Some fans interpreted that silence as abandonment, while others saw it as respect for a sensitive legal matter. The family was left divided, watching support show up in whispers instead of headlines. Next, as speculation continued, the story started affecting perception of future plans. Tour dates, collaborations, and appearances became question marks in fans' minds. Emotions ran high as people debated whether it was fair to assume long-term consequences based on unconfirmed information. Yet the possibility alone was enough to change how people talked about the future. What made this chapter especially tense was the realization that control had slipped away. No amount of social media presence, fan support, or public goodwill could override a legal system operating on its own rules. Fans are shocked because it exposed a vulnerability rarely seen at that level of fame. The moment when status stops mattering and outcomes feel completely out of your hands. As the story lingered without resolution, one feeling became clear across all sides. Fatigue, not just from the rumors, but from the waiting. Waiting for clarity, waiting for confirmation, waiting for something solid to hold on to. And in that waiting, the overseas case transformed from shocking headline into a quiet, persistent weight that refused to lift, keeping everyone involved suspended between disbelief and acceptance. By the time the story reached this stage, the atmosphere around it reportedly felt heavier than shock or anger. It felt like resignation mixed with quiet defiance. People close to the situation claimed there was a noticeable shift in tone. Like everyone had finally accepted that the appeal denial wasn't just a rumor floating online, but something that demanded emotional preparation. Fans are shocked because the energy moved from outrage to endurance, and that kind of shift usually only happens when reality starts sinking in. According to whispers, conversations inside the camp began focusing less on what went wrong and more on how to survive what comes next. Not in a dramatic way, but in a grounded, almost sober manner. One alleged insider said the talk wasn't about fear anymore, but about discipline, patience, and protecting mental health. Emotions ran high when fans heard that because it suggested people were no longer expecting a miracle reversal. They were preparing for a long stretch of uncertainty. Family members were rumored to be deeply involved at this stage, offering support in different ways. Some focused on emotional strength, reminding everyone that time passes no matter how slow it feels. And others allegedly pushed for structure, routines, and keeping focus on the bigger picture beyond the sentence. The family was left divided not by love, but by coping styles. One person reportedly wanted to keep fighting every angle, while another said, "We gotta stop living in the appeal and start living in reality." What hit fans hard was talk that the overseas system wasn't interested in compromise anymore. Allegedly, officials viewed the appeal as the final chance to argue leniency. And once that door closed, the tone became strictly procedural. Fans are shocked because that kind of rigidity feels foreign to audiences used to seeing celebrity cases drag on endlessly with negotiation after negotiation. Here, the rules appeared firm, cold, and unaffected by public opinion. The emotional conflict reportedly deepened when people began reflecting on how something so routine could spiral this far. traveling, a stop, a misunderstanding maybe, or a mistake that didn't feel serious at the time. Emotions ran high as supporters debated whether the punishment matched the situation or whether it was meant to send a message. That question alone fueled endless arguments, because nobody could agree on who the message was really for. Online, the conversation slowed but didn't disappear. The loudest voices faded, replaced by quieter discussions that felt more personal. Fans began sharing concerns instead of outrage. Asking how artists protect themselves abroad and why these realities aren't talked about more openly. Fans are shocked because the story evolved from scandal into cautionary tale right in front of their eyes. Another layer of tension came from rumors that staying strong publicly wasn't as easy privately. People claim moments of frustration broke through the calm, not in explosive ways, but in tired silence. One alleged quote said, "Funny, it's the waiting that messes with you," capturing how uncertainty can wear someone down more than bad news itself. That line stuck with fans because it felt painfully human. Industry reactions remained subdued. No press conferences, no loud campaigns, just quiet acknowledgement that this situation didn't have an easy fix. Some fans saw that as abandonment, while others viewed it as respect for a legal boundary nobody wanted to cross. What the family was left divided, watching how support showed up differently than expected, sometimes through silence instead of statements. As time passed, the idea of acceptance started circulating more openly. Not acceptance of guilt, but acceptance of circumstance. Emotions ran high as fans struggled with that distinction, fearing acceptance meant surrender. Others argued it meant strength, choosing not to let one chapter define an entire life. That debate reflected the broader conflict at the heart of this story. When do you fight and when do you endure? What made this phase especially heavy was the lack of a clear ending. No new hearings scheduled, no dramatic updates, just a long stretch of unknowns. Fans are shocked because the absence of news felt louder than any headline. Every quiet day felt like confirmation to some and false calm to others. In the end, what lingered wasn't just the sentence or the appeal denial, but the vulnerability it exposed. A reminder that borders change rules, that fame doesn't translate everywhere, and that one moment can redirect an entire narrative. The family was left divided but united in purpose to get through whatever comes next without losing themselves in the noise. And as this chapter continues without closure, the story sits in an uncomfortable space between disbelief and reality. Not fully confirmed, not fully denied, just heavy, unresolved, and impossible to ignore. Fans are shocked not because the outcome is clear, but because the uncertainty feels real. And sometimes, that's the hardest sentence of all. So now the question is in your hands. After everything you just heard, with the denied appeal, the overseas courtroom energy, the silence, the emotional toll, and the way this situation slowly shifted from shock to survival, what do you really believe is happening here? Fans are shocked because this story doesn't feel like a clean headline anymore, as it feels like something unfinished, something still unfolding behind closed doors. Do you think this is a harsh example of international law being applied with zero flexibility, or do you believe there's more to the case that hasn't been made public yet? Emotions ran high throughout this whole situation because every angle raises a different concern. Fame versus accountability, confidence versus caution, and whether celebrity lifestyles truly prepare artists for how different the rules can be once they leave home. And let's be real for a second, if someone at that level can end up facing a 9-month sentence overseas with no appeal relief, what does that say about how protected anyone really is? The family was left divided, fans are split down the middle, and the industry itself seems to be watching quietly, almost cautiously, waiting to see how this ends before saying too much. Now we want to hear from you. Do you think the punishment sounds excessive, or do you believe the law is the law, no matter who you are? Should artists change how they move internationally after stories like this? And if you were in that position, would you keep fighting every angle? Or would you accept the situation and focus on getting through it mentally? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation isn't slowing down anytime soon. Like this video if it made you see international fame differently. Subscribe if you want stories that go deeper than surface headlines, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update. Because in this space, today's rumor can become tomorrow's reality. And sometimes the quietest stories are the ones with the biggest consequences.